official podcast of Cardinalization 24/7. Each week, we put a unique perspective on bringing you the latest news, updates, and rumors of the St. Louis Cardinals baseball organization. Join the nation. Stay informed by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, subscribing to us on the podcast form of your choice, and most of all, by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you all for supporting the nation. Let's get things started. Here are your hosts, Jarrad Redwine, Chris Lollis, and Larry Cox. Hello, Cardinals Nation, and welcome to another episode of the Cardinalization 24/7 podcast. As you can see, I am joined, as always, by the workhorse of the group, the living legend, Larry Cox. Larry, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, Jarrad? What's up, buddy?
Not much. And conspicuous by his absence is the bearded dragon, Mr. Chris Lollis. He couldn't make it this evening. He was having some troubles with internet due to some of the storms moving throughout the Midwest and the wind and everything messing with his internet connection. So hopefully we'll catch him next time and let the ratings go through the roof, and then we'll just cancel his contract, kind of like the MLB Network did with Chris Rose. So we got Larry here as always. He's our workhorse. He's coming to us late in the evening from his office. He'll do whatever he can to make things work because he's willing to put forth the effort, unlike myself and Chris.
Exactly.
So we'll jump right into it. The lockout, obviously, no change. Larry, I know it's probably beating a dead horse, but we have to cover it. I guess we're going to talk baseball. The lockout is still, in effect, and from what I've heard, it's not going to change until, well after, and looks like sometime after the first of the year is what I've kind of been reading preliminarily. But I didn't think they would get anything done by this time anyways. I was thinking somewhere around Valentine's Day. But what say you? How long do you think this is going to keep going?
I was hoping that this would all come to an end after the holidays. I was hoping the winter meetings would get in, give the agents a time to talk to the teams and maybe move around some players. Do all the activity we had prior to the lockout. It was kind of interesting to watch it, just the flurry of activity, and then just to see it stop is just it kills the momentum for baseball and fans as a whole. Me, I think we were kind of just recovering still from the last shutdown, but as we talked about in the past, that the CBA, this was going to be a sticking point. So hopefully it doesn't last too much longer.
Yeah, I mean, the last lockout was, 94? We missed a whole year, and it took baseball quite a while to recover from that. And lots changed in baseball since then. There's a lot more big money out there now, Larry. So, I mean, I think the reality of it is both teams are going to act like, they're going to be tough to deal with, but neither side wants a strike at this point. I mean, they both want to get back in there and be making that money because, fans get upset and start, there's a lot more options, than used to. It was, you watch your local regionals, sports even back in the 90s, if you were in St. Louis area, you watched the Cardinals, or you didn't watch baseball, you might watch the Braves on TBS, but there weren't baseball packages and there weren't all these other sports, and there wasn't an NFL ticket, you watch whatever was local and that's it. But there's so many options now, and a lot of different sports leagues, people can just flip and go to something else. And that could be a bad thing for Major League Baseball because there's too many options and people aren't just going to sit and wait. People want their entertainment. So a lot of money could be lost.
Yeah, I think also, like you said, the fact is that there's so much satellite TVs and stuff that you have options. Even when baseball was shut out during COVID and all, we got to see the Korean baseball and stuff like that. That could be another turning point for a lot of fans. They could start turning into Japanese baseball or whatever, and maybe they find, what, these millionaires have just wasted our time long enough and move on.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I actually forgot about that because I was actually watching the Japanese baseball leagues and stuff in the Korean baseball league on ESPN, and that's a good point that you made because all these big networks like ESPN, et cetera, are going to have to find things to broadcast to fill their schedule up. They're just not going to leave the programming slots open forever. So they're going to have to start looking at possible plan B options if they don't get their act together. And if that happens, you definitely won't see pitchers like Max Scherzer getting, $47 million a year. That's going to really cut in everyone's pace. So I think it's definitely going to have an effect if they don't get it done. But I think just me, my personal feeling is before spring training comes, they'll get it done so everything takes place business as usual. Hopefully. So that's what I would like. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to make it seem like it's going to be tough, but they'll somehow be able to come to an agreement. But the thing that gets me, Larry, is like, every time you talk to Major League Baseball or you see someone say something or someone from the Players Union, the toughest part for me as a baseball fan is to hear, Max Scherzer, who is on the player, who's part of the association, is part of the union. As soon as you hear him talking about, how, owners are, getting this or that, and it's not fair, and then you find out he's making $47 million, which is more than an entire team, it's hard for me to sympathize with players like Max Scherzer going through that. What say you?
Well, like we've said for years that when like in the NFL or the NBA, players like the Michael Jordans of the world and even the Brett Favres and them guys, they took pay cuts just so they could have other players around them. And I think that's the reality that I think baseball is going to have to face eventually. These players are going to have to realize that, I'm getting $350 million to play baseball for 11 years. Oh, I'm sorry, we have no pitching, we have no outfield, but hey, we've got a hell of a shortstop. You look at like the Padres, what we estimate last year, they had $800 or $900 million just in their infield alone. And then they went out and got 5 off-season acquisition for pitchers that none of them really pitched. Then they missed the playoffs. So again, my standpoint's always been, spending money doesn't always necessarily win, or the Yankees and the Dodgers would never lose. It's hard to sympathize with either side because, we heard the owners crying during COVID. They laid off all their staff and all that was going on. They're broke. But then they come right out of a COVID year. They're signing Max Scherzer for $47 million or whatever, and you're like, hold on a second. You're not that broke. So, I mean, eventually I guess it's going to be somebody's going to have to open the book somewhere and just share and say, hey, here's the deal. Because we don't need another collusion or lawsuits that really tie up this issue. And I really don't think either side's really that far apart. I think the owners are saying, hey, we got to structure this where the $350 million contracts aren't given to every kid that comes out of the minor leagues. But at the same time, the owners have to make money as well, so the players have to realize their side as well. I've had this argument with our group on Facebook before that, which side has the more loss or gain from a shutdown or what have you. I always say, if it wasn't for the stadiums and the owners putting their money into it, players would not get anything. They wouldn't have a place to play. You just want to see baseball at some kind of high value. There's 30 and over adult leagues of baseball you can go watch for free. Why are you watching the St. Louis Cardinals and paying $110 a ticket?
Right. Well, I think part of that too is Twitter and Instagram and places like that have definitely helped players because players can get on there and speak their mind, and it's a way to get their opinion out there. We've seen it with players like Flaherty as far as like social things and his personal beliefs, and you see Yachty has mentioned things before about baseball, as far as like Matheny in the past and stuff of that nature to get attention, even with a little comment or just posting a random picture. And I feel like all the fans are. I'm not trying to pick sides here, but I'm trying to be like trying to think of it down the middle. If I was gonna moderate, them coming together to make a deal, the owners don't say as much and during a lockout aren't talking and aren't allowing their people to talk, but players can continue to say whatever they want. But, the point of it is, the teams do, and most of the teams do make a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of people that are rich that own teams. They got to that point for a reason. But then also we always talk about it. Even players say this too, whenever they leave a town where fans love them and take more money, they say, hey, this is a business. And I think everyone needs to remember that, hey, this is a business. Just like you have your own business, just how I do business myself. You're in business to make money. Just because they have money doesn't mean they should spend it all. Now, do they want to invest that in the product and hopefully get a better return? If they're good businessmen, you would think, yes, that is the case. But people don't just open up a business, Larry. You didn't start your business to pay every dime that you make back to the people so you don't make extra money. That's not the point of owning a business. So teams are supposed to make money. It doesn't mean they give it all back to the players. And, last year with COVID being a shortened season, no ticket sales, you're not selling merchandise, you don't have concessions. That is a huge hit to the pocketbook, and you still have to pay those major league salaries, regardless. And they were even, prorating the amount per game, etc. So those guys were still making some good money. Not that any teams went out of business, but you have a year to where you're paying out millions of dollars and your revenue stream gets cut quite a bit. That can affect things for long term. But lucky for us, it didn't. So, I don't want to keep being the dead horse about the lockout, but I feel like, everyone says we're doing this for the fans to make the game better. The commissioner was saying that, the players union has been saying that, but it'll really depend on if they're really there for the fans, if we miss any baseball time. If we miss baseball time in the spring, even at spring training, to me, they're not doing it for the fans, because right now the fans, for the most part, are happy other than the changes they're trying to make. And the bottom line is even though we think it's astronomical, we think these guys make a lot of money, but we just want to see baseball. So if they don't end up figuring it out and playing baseball, that's whenever the fans are going to be upset. So if they say they're doing it for the fans, I hope that they show us that they really are and can make something happen.
Well, I think for the most part, I think fans also forget that, a stadium holds X amount of bodies, and at some point you can't exceed the value of that seat per se. And if you do, then your fan base is gone. I mean, like you said, you can't really even take a family of four to a game, hot dogs and drinks for under $100 anymore. And that's a lot of money to some people, especially in the struggling economy right now with the gas price and everything else going up. So, you put the games on the back burner. You're not so concerned with it. And yet you got this kid that, he can hit a baseball. So he gets 11 years, $275 million contract. He's only been in the league for 9 months, or whatever. And you look at that and you say, no, wait a minute. You're telling me that kid's worth, $18, $19 million a year, but I can't take my son to see a baseball game, or my grandson at this point, to a baseball game because I simply can't afford it. But then you look at, like yourself, I know you have the MLB package. Then you're spending a couple $100s a year for an MLB package, and you're still blacked out at certain games. So something has to give. I mean, for me personally, I can't buy the package because I'm 3 hours away from 4 major stadiums. So I'm blacked out from 4 different locations to even watch it. So I can't even watch Cardinals baseball if I wanted to on an MLB package per se. And so I think that's part of it. What's that?
I said, sorry, you just be throwing your money in the trash.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think the owners have moved away from. But I think the players themselves, it's about, it's the me is me mentality. They want to say, well, Stan the Man never made $1 million a year or whatever. That's right. Loaf of bread was a nickel. So let's stop using those, let's compare apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. And even like, how mad were fans when Albert Pujols took a contract and he left. It was a business. He took more money. He left. It's not that he hates St. Louis, but at the same time, was he supposed to say and take less money from the Cardinals because he liked the fans? I mean, you can't have it both ways, and that's the biggest thing, I think. And I agree with you. I think after the holidays, I think the cooler heads will prevail. And I think a lot of it, believe it or not, I think it's the luxury tax. I think is one of the holdups. I think you have teams like Pittsburgh and teams like that. They're not spending the money they're getting. Their on-field performance is not garnishing what they're getting from teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers. So if you're not using that money to become a competitive balance, then why are you taking the money at all?
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, that the owners have the whole lockout deal with the whole owners have all the power. Well, every time this has been negotiated, the players have to agree to it. So the players can't just get mad at ownership and say, you put us in a bad spot, because the players union that get elected, those people that are on the board for the players union, like Andrew Miller, who's a former Cardinal who doesn't have a team right now, those guys get elected by their peers to be on that board. So everyone has to go through and agree to a deal. But as far as baseball, they're the highest paid professional athletes of any sport. And every year the money has gone up and up, even with COVID. Mm-hmm. It's like, I was just looking back, and I was looking for another reason too, but I wanted to pull it up. 1982 has been a while now. Okay, we're going to be approaching 40 years. But the highest paid player on the team was Bruce Sutter, at $975,000
Right.
for a year. And there were several people on the major league team, even Tommy Herr, LaPointe, Tito Landrum, Willie McGee, all those guys on the team, and then some, made $30,000 a year. So baseball has made huge leaps and bounds. Just even I would say in the last 10 years, these contracts are ridiculous. So definitely to say that the players haven't got, some people are saying, well, the major league minimum hasn't gone up much. But if you go back and look at what it used to be over the years, it is compared to, I don't want to put a dollar amount, but compared to a normal job, which these guys are getting paid to do a job, and they sign a contract to go play for that team, it's gone up substantially. So to say like they never have had raises whenever, hockey players are probably the least paid, and they go through tremendous physical abuse.
Yeah.
And every other team has lower caps than, in football, and they have more players. So, I mean, you have to think, the baseball players, in a lot of ways, they're a bunch of spoiled rich babies, but everyone always says it's rich people fighting over pennies, but it really is because everyone's greedy, and hopefully they just don't forget the fans and leave the fans behind.
At some point, you have to say, how many millions is too many millions? And that's what I've said. I mean, if you think about it, if I gave you $1 million today, all of your bills would be paid off. Now, you, of course, would, you become a little bit more extravagant. The more you make, the more you spend. So I get that. I get the mentality. But when some of these kids, I mean, you take Yadier Molina, I mean, from where he started to where he is now, he has a really nice house in Dominican. He has a really nice house in St. Louis, I'm sure. He has a really nice vacation home here or there. How many millions does that guy need to be happy where he's holding the Cardinals' feet to a fire to say, hey, I'm Yadier Molina, the fans love me, and you're going to pay me or else I'm going to go someplace else. And I think that's part of the mentality of baseball that's just wrong. And even like, Wainwright, he did what a lot of players should do. Okay, fine. I'll take a lower amount up front and then incentives until this year. Now he's making $14 million or whatever it is this year, but it's still it's incentive laden contracts, and that's the thing. To me, there's got to be a better balance of that.
I love incentive-based contracts. That's how I'm paid. I'm pretty sure it's how you're paid.
That's exactly how I'm paid. 100% commission.
Mm-hmm. And it gives the players a reason to go out and perform and make starts and compete at a high level. Because players are talking about competing at a high level. That makes them want to compete at a high level. Okay, well, you say your on-base clip is this, or you make this many starts, you're going to get this much money, or you get voted to the All-Star game, or MVP votes, you get this much money. I like those kind of deals, and I think Wainwright's salary is a little higher this year because of the last couple of years as well. As he's pitched, it's kind of like a little hometown kickback of, hey, you've done a good job, so here's a few extra bucks for you, type of thing. But we'll see what happens. But I'm sure they'll figure it out. But I'm sure we'll keep talking about it until then.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's all opinions from our side. We're not sitting in that room, and I think that's the biggest thing a lot of the fans miss, even in negotiations between players, agents, and management and the teams. You don't know what's said in that meeting. They could have made a verbal agreement, and then they walk out of that room. The first thing they say is, that's not what was said at all. I mean, we just don't know. And I think all we want is baseball, and Manfred needs to leave the game the hell alone. I mean, there's a reason the game's been around as long as it has, and it sure hasn't been because of his help. And I'm sorry if you're one of those Xbox people that think a 3-hour baseball game is boring. Then I'm sorry, but I like it the way it is. You like it the way it is. I can understand the movement to the DH. I really can after, even like watching Waino get hurt a couple of times, swinging a bat, the Mets pitcher, he pulled his rib cage. What's that?
Yeah, well, the amount of money these guys are making too, right, Larry? You got Max Scherzer for the Mets. He's going to go to bat. What if he gets hit by a pitch in the rib cage?
Yeah, I mean, $41
million. He's done.
And I think that's the biggest thing that fans don't realize that as well is that the baseball players themselves are a product, and we don't want to talk about that they are human beings per se, but they're not. They're a sales bought and sold product, and So by saying that is that they are my marketing techniques. They are my product I put on the field. And the problem is that if Major League Baseball tomorrow said, you know what, everybody right now that's in the major leagues, we're not going to negotiate with you. We're going to go to local high schools. We're going to draft. We're going to pull kids up from the AA, and we're going to start all over. And guess what? They can do that. They have that right. And in 5 or 6 years, there'd be another Mike Trout. There'd be another, because that's who the guys you would root for. Either you'd be a part of the game or you wouldn't, but that's what you would do. You would find new favorites to like. We may not agree with that philosophy as far as the owner saying, hey, let's get rid of the Ozzie Smiths of the world or whatever. But, 10 years ago, you didn't know who Trout was. You didn't know who Harper was and that's the thing. Now you add these players to the mix. They become your favorites because that's who you've seen play. I said, one of my alternatives when somebody asked me, so what are you going to do when baseball doesn't come back? I'll go to there's a high school right across the street. I'll go watch high school baseball. There's 2 colleges in town. I'll go watch one of the college teams play. We have a wood bat league that's pretty competitive. I'll go watch it. I don't have to spend $300 or $400 to go watch a Cardinals game. I do it because I want to, not because I have to.
Well, you actually made a very good point about that, and you've seen that with this current CBA, this current collective bargaining agreement. We've seen to where, with the qualifying offer and having to give up draft pick compensation, we saw not so much this year during COVID, but we saw 2 years ago, I don't know if you recall, Larry, but hardly nobody was being picked up that had declared free agency that had the qualifying offer because nobody wanted to give up the draft pick.
Yeah, that's how we got Greg Holland.
Yeah. Well, then exactly. That's exactly the year when we signed him for a lot cheaper than what he wanted, thank God. But there was a lot of players that were in that boat, and a lot of players that probably would have normally went on a team that were aging that kind of retired and kind of stepped away from the game a little early. So those guys don't have to get that much money, and teams don't have to play them. They can go out and get someone. That's why you're seeing the importance of these farm systems and the young people being called up a little sooner. So I think there's a lot of chess pieces and stuff back and forth in some of this stuff. But that's a great point that you brought up, and I know they don't like that qualifying offer draft pick compensation. But if player left for free agency before, they used to do that. I don't know if you're. They used to do that B type pick competitive balance. Different teams. But apparently they didn't like that. But then they thought that was a better system. So we're going to try to jump in here and see if we can get Chris on, see if it's going to work.
We're going to try.
To log in here.
But, yeah, and that's the thing.
There he is.
There he is. Look at that. We're being blessed by the bearded dragon himself.
What's up, guys? Had some technical difficulties. I think the weather here is kind of acting up.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. So those of you that aren't watching that are listening to us, all the stuff we said before, forget that. Chris Lollis is now joining us. Better late than never. He just wanted to make a little appearance. But Chris, we're talking. Obviously, we're talking the lockout. And we thought we didn't want to beat a dead horse, but we'd talk about it now for 25 minutes because we keep coming up with some pretty good topics. But lockout's still in effect. I think we're just kind of wrapping that up, I guess. Unless, Larry, you have any closing topics on the lockout you want to mention?
No, I mean, and I agree with you. I mean, that's, a couple of years ago we proved the fact that, like you said, we picked up Holland for $14 million, and he was wanting 20-something million, and that was the thing. How many kids are in, South American, our facilities down there that are learning, how many of those kids would love to make $10,000 a year, not $1 million, but $10,000. And so, and I think that's what we don't put in perspective. Yeah. And like I said before, it's the more you make, the more you're going to spend. I mean, it was Cespedes a couple years ago when the Mets signed him. He showed up every day at spring training in a different car. I mean, and that was, to me, he was rubbing it into the fans. This is what I bought with this big contract. And now you look back and the guy hardly ever even played for him. So that just shows you that.
Maybe he's like an Emerald member at like National Rental Car or something.
And on top of that, then he had a horse and all kinds of weird things. But, he did. He rode to win with a horse one time or something. It was weird.
Oh, I didn't see. I thought you were joking.
No, I was serious. He did. He rode into spring training on a horse. But the thing was, is think about the egotistical personality that has to be, that you can show up in a $100,000 car every different day or whatever, And then you're telling a family of four you can't go to a game because you can't afford it because a guy like him has to have a new Lamborghini. And I think that's the reality lost on a lot of the players themselves. Now, fans may disagree with me because, again, I also look at the other side of that is the top 5% in any industry is going to make top dollar. The top doctors, top lawyers, top insurance agents, what have you. They make that kind of money because they deserve it. And I'm not saying that the players don't deserve it, but at some point, you outprice the game itself. I can't go down the car lot and buy 7 cars because I'm outpriced. And I think that's what's happened here. And like I said, I understand both sides of it.
Yeah, and Chris, kind of what we're talking about is we're talking about, how the money involved, with the lockout, owners are owners for a reason. They're supposed to make money, but I think now with, Twitter and Instagram, a lot of fans take the sides of the players. But, guys come in to own teams to make money. They don't, Larry doesn't run his business and say, what, we're making good money this year, so I'm just going to give that back to everyone. I'm not going to take any of it. That's why people own a business, is to reap the benefits and the profits of when it's making money. And whenever that business loses money, they take it in the shorts and they got to throw money back into it. So, it's kind of, I was just saying the fact, it's hard for, guys like Max Scherzer, who's on the Players Union, member of the Players Association. He's doing these interviews on MLB Network Radio talking about how, they want to do all this for the players and all that. It's hard for me, this is just my opinion, to sympathize with a guy that's making over $40 million a year, is making more than most teams combined. I don't really have the sympathy card for me. I don't really feel sympathetic toward his cause. But the real, me and Larry have been talking about this back and forth, but the real, everyone says, well, we're trying to do it for the fans to make the game better and the product better and more competitive. Well, we'll find that out come spring training. If spring training gets pushed back or the season gets pushed back, they're really not doing it for the fans. They're doing it for money and which side is going to make more than the other. So your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a difference in, like on some of that, the guys that are the younger ball players coming up and their money that they're making, the minor leaguers, what they make. But when you're looking at a guy like Scherzer, like you said, that's making what an entire team is making, that's bad for baseball because you're kind of, how much more can you up the ante on what these contracts are going to be? I mean, teams are, it's going to be ridiculous. Larry all the time talks about the Padres infield, and now they're wanting to kind of shop Hosmer because they're wanting to shed some of that payroll. You can't go all in like that because there needs to be a cap, and I think there needs to be a, kind of a bottom and a top. I mean, if you want competitiveness, which was kind of what one of the topics of the whole lockout is they're wanting teams to not tank, to be competitive. Teams that are like the Pirates and like the Orioles that have not been spending much money, it's not good for baseball.
Well, I mean, if you're
for baseball, but I mean, go ahead, Larry. Sorry.
If you're a season ticket holder for the Chicago Cubs last year, and they start tanking and start selling off Rizzo and those guys, you're sitting there, you just dropped thousands of dollars for those seats, and now you've got a product that you could have went right down the street to Iowa and seen the Iowa Cubs because that's all they brought up, or cast-offs from other teams. That's not what you bought. That's not what you bought into. And I think that's what the NBA itself, that's what they found. Some of those teams were tanking for that to get the number 1 overall pick, and it hurt the product and it hurt the brand, and I think they still haven't recovered from it. And I think that's the biggest downside that a lot of people are seeing. And like I said earlier, we talked about, the Pirates. They are a farm team for Major League Baseball. That's all they have been for years. And I would say all the way back to Bonds and Bonilla and those guys leaving, they've, made the playoffs one time since?
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, it is a good point. You don't want to do the tanking thing, but them with their draft picks, I get it. It makes sense. It makes sense as a business person. Everyone says this is a business, right? Well, the Pirates, obviously can't go out and afford to make some of those moves. Now, the Cardinals always want to say, well, we're a mid-market team. I think as far as that excuse goes, that's bullshit because Cardinals typically always draw a lot of fans and have very good TV ratings. Now they have, for years, they were saying, wait till we get our new TV deal. Our new TV deal, we're going to have more money. We get this big TV deal with Bally's. Well, the new TV deal came in and they didn't really spend much. So the Cardinals use that as an excuse, but I think in some cases, like the Pirates, and even Tampa Bay is a perfect excuse. Well, or even, say Arizona, you think would be better, but, you have to have owners that will invest money into a team. Arizona is one of the worst. It's like that for every sport, and I can say that living here. Right now the Arizona Cardinals football team is getting a lot of people because they're playing well. If they play like shit, no one's going. It's the same way for the Diamondbacks. But then again, if a manager and ownership team is doing what they're supposed to try to put a competitive product on the field, hopefully they should be competitive. Or in the Pirates case, which they've done a pretty good job at. So the A's have figured it out, right? They're usually pretty competitive every year, and they don't spend a shit ton of money. And now they're going to dump it all again this year, but they usually have a pretty quick turn. But where that balance is, I don't know. And we were talking to Chris about how, we just saw, every time they've had a CBA expire, the players themselves negotiate and say, yeah, we're going to take this deal. Well, they used to, like when Pujols left to go to the Angels, right? They used to do the competitive balance pick. Okay, Pujols left, so you get a Type A round, then you get a Type B a round B compensation, like a sandwich pick to try to make up for that loss. Well, they thought, that doesn't work, so the players wanted something different. So they came up with the qualifying offer, which has been put in place by the players. So that's an average of everyone in the major leagues, an average of the salary, which now it's like $16 million, which no one ever would have thought it would ever be that damn much. It was just like 11 or 12 a few years ago. But we saw 2 years ago teams didn't want to do that because of the draft pick compensation, the money involved with that. So you saw a lot of players, like Holland, which signed with us late, and a lot of bullpen guys that were in their lower to mid 30s that probably had another year or two. We kind of retired early because nobody was signing them because they didn't want to take that risk. But like Larry just made a good point. Well, if they keep driving up this money and they want more money, whenever they come back, the players have to be careful. What's to stop an owner from saying, you know what, forget this. I'm gonna bring up. Sure, you got your deal, but next year I'm gonna bring up Thompson and Libator, and I'm going to put them out there, and I'm just going to keep cycling through my young guys, and I'm not going to pay you a damn penny of whatever you think you're worth. But I mean, it's just a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of what ifs, and I know the players want a lot more, and the owners want more, but the players say they want it to be more competitive, right? But they don't want more teams in the playoffs, or at least that's their stance currently. Well, that would make more teams competitive in the playoffs, which would make more teams want to do mid-season moves to try to get more competitive. Now, some other teams might not because they're in the hunt, but to me, I think more teams in the playoffs is a good idea. I hate the one-game wild card thing. I think that's stupid. People go and invest 162 games a year to watch a team go lose one game, and they may not even get a home playoff game. I think a wild card series should be a best of 3. Each team, there's too many days. Shorten spring training then, or make the season 160 games, not 162. That way, if St. Louis is playing L.A., you open in St. Louis, you play on Tuesday, you travel on Wednesday, you play Thursday in L.A. If they got to play again, you go back to the team with the better record to play the third and final. It's not fucking rocket science. They can do all this, everything else, but all this is too much. Would be too long of a postseason. Well, it's going to bring you more money than game 162 where they played the Pirates 16 fucking times. I'm running out of breath.
But you end up. But the problem is with the extended, they'd have to move the season the other way because you'd end up like the 1 year that Cleveland way back when they played the Braves, they had snow. They had to cancel a World Series game due to snow because they played in Cleveland. So when you apply those teams that live in the North, you have to kind of be mindful of the weather conditions as well. So like you said, let's shorten spring training. Why do we need this extended spring training? You're only looking at adding maybe, like the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's go into spring training 2022.
I like spring training.
I love spring training. But
make the season 150 games. Why do we need 162?
But the reality is, how many true players are they going to take out of spring training that they already don't know they're going to take? You're looking at, last year, they have 3 or 4 options available that coming out of spring training. So everybody was tuned up, ready to go, but, they had a little bit of drama, the Parsons and the Rondons and those guys. Those guys were the last ones to really decide what they were going to do. But then you kind of, like you said, do you move the season back? But the problem with baseball is we're history-driven and, nostalgic, Chris. We're very nostalgic. So now do we put asterisks behind all the new records and all that crap because it's a 152 season instead of 162? I don't have the answers. You don't have the answers. But all I want to see is some damn baseball.
They want to make baseball good and fun for the fans, competitive. first of all, they should hire me. I would be a great liaison to.
Except you're an asshole.
Baseball fan.
But
I am also an asshole. That's true. But the DH is going to be in play anyways because we couldn't sign people like Ortiz, we couldn't sign Pujols. National League teams were at a disadvantage. The Players Association wants those long contract possibilities for every single team, and they want to be able to, lengthen or improve the longevity of a player's career. And the DH spot will be another full-time spot on every single roster for 15 teams. That'll be somebody that's playing every single day, whether you rotate someone or not. But I think the DH should be playing. I think it should be like basketball. Every team should play every team every year. You're looking at a game schedule, and it's not that tough. These guys are fucking flying around on Lear jets and getting suites at hotels when they go somewhere. Oh, cry me a fucking river while I'm getting paid $30 million. You got a real – Chris, make sure you check the language thing when you upload the episode. But, how many times when you guys have went to a game, you guys want to go see a Cardinals game this weekend? Oh, who are they playing? Oh, the Pirates. Oh, that's fucking great. That'll be the 15th time. Oh, hey, you guys want to go see a game this weekend? Even if it's a shitty team, who's coming to town? The Athletics or the Mariners. Oh, crap, I haven't seen them play.
Right.
I would like to see Chapman and Matt Olson play. That's awesome. I never get to see him play. I'd like to go see Manaea pitch. Or who's coming to town? The Yankees. Oh, shit, Aaron Judge is going to be in town. Oh, is Stanton? Let's go watch the Yankees. That would improve ratings for television, which is going to improve money and sponsorship ads. It's going to improve ticket sales. You could also increase the price on some of those tickets. Instead of saying, hey, do you want to go see them play the Pirates for the 20th time? Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Oh, the Red Sox are coming to town. Or, hey, I want to get home and watch the Cardinals game tonight because they're playing the Twins or somebody that they don't ever play. This interleague stuff has to go away. Then we talk about changing the game for the better. That's the stuff they need to do. I hate the new pitching rule where they got to pitch with 3 people, and it really takes away from strategy in the bullpen. I know, and I just said DH, that takes away strategy too. But the left-hand reliever used to be something cool, and that one-on-one matchup was intense. Is he going to get the guy or is he not? That's just stuff they've gone away from, and that's the things they need to. They want to make baseball better, and they care about the fans. Overall, that will make them all more money. It's going to drive ticket sales. It's going to drive TV ratings. And then, that's what sucked before. You have David Ortiz and Derek Jeter and all these guys, Mariano Rivera and all these guys that are retiring, these great players, right? And they would never come to St. Louis and play. That sucks. For me being a baseball fan, even though I'm a Cardinal fan, I want to see those guys play. I want to see those Hall of Famers come play. I don't want to fucking go to New York and watch. It's hard to go watch a game in St. Louis and pay for it, let alone go fly to New York and watch these guys play.
How cool would it be if you had just let's say your rivalries? Okay, so that's a protected. Say the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Cardinals and the Cubs and the Dodgers and the Giants. That's a protected rivalry. But then those 2 teams, that rivalry, they would change their division every year. So you'd face teams like the Cardinals could be in the same division with, say, Anaheim and the Mariners for a year or something, because then you would get to see those teams you haven't seen play. And it wouldn't be, like you said, it wouldn't be the interleague play. It would just be baseball. And I understand travel comes into effect, but like you said, these guys are traveling anyway. I mean, it used to be when I was a kid, if the Cardinals did a West Coast swing, they played the Giants, they played the Dodgers, then they played the Astros, and then they came home. That's what you did. You didn't fly out, play the Dodgers a 3-game set, and then you're back to St. Louis the next day. And they all have private jets now. They're not taking buses. They're not taking the train. So I don't understand the way, like you said, why are we making this harder than it has to be? I think the 3 of us, Pirates, let's go, Manfred. We'll fix this.
And I'm not saying you don't play your division more because you're still going to have your rivalry with the Cubs. You're going to play them more than twice still. You might play them 4 times. 2 series in Chicago, 2 in St. Louis, 1 4-game, and each place 1 3-game. And you can still have those interdivision matchups that kind of help determine the seedings, but you're not playing them 5-6 times. And, I don't know how long – I need to actually look it up, how long a plane ride is from St. Louis to, say, Milwaukee. It's at least going to be 2 hours, 2.5. You can get to the West Coast in 3.
Right.
So it's good. It's the travel time. Well, it's an extra fucking hour. Okay, so, I mean – we drive that to come watch you guys play. You can get on a fancy first class on your jet and fly there. You get all your.
Currently, how many times do we play each division team right now? Do you know offhand?
Look it up. It's got to be. It's between 5 and 7 times. It's got to be.
Oh, it's at least.
I see. I think you could have like say you play each team in your division 3 different series, a home and away, and then alternate years of who gets the second stretch of a series. And I think with the expanded playoffs, the division winner, it really doesn't weigh as much as it used to. Mm-hmm. So you could get away with like shortening the division series to you play the Cubs 3 times, like 3 series. You play each team in the division 3 times. And then to make up those games that you would be cutting out against, playing the Pirates 18 times or however many times, that's when you could Cardinals versus the Mariners, Cardinals versus, teams that you don't normally see. And I think that would bode well because obviously the division is not going to be as weighted as it used to be as if we're going to have an expanded playoff or 14 teams make the playoffs.
We play the Cubs in 2022. We'll play the Cubs 15 times.
15 times.
Yeah, 5 series. 5 series between us and them, and then Pittsburgh will play. Let's see, Pittsburgh we play 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, like you could even do the Cubs there. You could play them. You could play them 4 3-game series and cut 3 games off of that. And play, you could make it work to where it would be, and get rid of the 4-game series. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but I don't, here we are, Game 4 against the Reds. But whoa.
Well,
who gives a shit?
Well, like you said, if you're the Cardinals and you're say Milwaukee because they're our most competitive right now, and you're both in a competitive race, and you play the Pittsburgh Pirates 14 times, they play the Pittsburgh Pirates 10 times. Is that really fair and balanced scheduling? Reality. Because we know, out of 14 games, you're going to win probably 10 against the Pirates. So you're getting a 4-game lead on another team.
Well, it's not, but then that's why you kind of have everyone in the division play each other a set period of times. That way the standings kind of balance out. Well, you played the Pirates 8 times. Well, yeah, so did the Cubs. So, what's the difference?
But like I'm saying, if we played Pittsburgh 14 times and the Cubs played them 7 times or 10 times, whatever, and then Milwaukee played them 10 times and then the Reds played them 14, it wouldn't balance out if they're the worst team in the league. That's what I'm saying.
Well, to me,
mathematically it should work, but
to me that's a problem MLB should be able to figure out. I don't think why should. And you're right though, it does happen. I've seen it happen before, but you're thinking, why is that happening? On occasion it should, but for the most part, everyone in your division, they should be able to work that out and branch out. 2 West Coast trips a year or whatever. When the West Coast people come here, they're already going to be playing other teams. You can't tell me that it's a big trip like you just said a minute ago, Larry. Right? Whenever the Cardinals are going to play the Dodgers, then it's Arizona, a West Coast trip. It's not that far from Oakland or anywhere else, and they're going to come here because the Angels and stuff are going to come play the Kansas City Royals. That's not very far to play the Cardinals.
Right.
But it's a travesty that Cardinal fans considered, everyone says they're the best fans in baseball and everyone loves playing in St. Louis, that you're not going to see Mike Trout and Ohtani play in St. Louis. To me, that's horseshit. As a baseball fan, I don't care about the tradition of it and who should play where in the pitcher batting. I want to see Ohtani come to the plate. We all talk shit about, who cares, whatever, but you want to see it. You want to see Mike Trout playing. We saw with the Angels, but every year you want to get a chance, okay? The Angels came to town with Albert, but what was it? That's the first fucking time he's
10 years
been back. Yeah.
And it used to be.
He came back with the Dodgers, but
right.
But 10 years. That's a fucking joke. St. Louis Cardinals didn't have Pujols play back for 10 years, and how much money did they make off his return? How pumped were the fans to go watch that game? That's what I'm talking about. I think baseball's – if you look at baseball, as much money as they all make, it's all fucked up.
It used to be that if a player left a team like that, for some reason the schedule makers always made sure they were back in their hometown the next year. And then with Albert, it was just like, what the hell? How does he not ever come back to St. Louis? But, and like you said, it's just, I think it's so, they've got it so convoluted that it's just about what they want it to be, I guess you could say. And I don't think anybody really puts a thought into the afterthought or what have you, because like you said, could you imagine like Tampa or Miami flying to the Marlins or to the Mariners to play Seattle? I mean, that's like a 12-hour plane trip. You're easier to go the other way than say going across the United States, but they're there and you play them.
But they're playing Oakland and LA
Right.
and stuff. So
Exactly.
I mean, you
That's
do it
what
on
I'm
the same
saying.
trip.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
you
play
don't get
3 or 4 other teams, it equals out. That's what I'm saying. I agree with you. Did I say that out loud, Chris? I agreed with him? Shit. Oh.
Hold on, wait a second.
I think Chris wants to talk eventually. I think you and I keep cutting him off.
December. Well, we were rolling. He kind of came here.
It's not our fault. We had momentum.
Yeah, and we guess our ears are all hot, but the lockout that took a long time. Chris, we'll go to the next topic. I guess we'll talk about the lockout. And right before we started, I'm thinking lockout. What are we going to say about that? It's still in progress. And here we go. We just go on a big tangent, so I apologize. Sure, I want to be glad when I'm not back on again next week. Mike Schilt, Chris, he took a job with Major League Baseball, and he's not managing a team of all things, but he's going to be working in the commissioner's office. Your thoughts on Schilt and his new role?
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked that we thought he would get maybe the Padres gig or even the Athletics gig. I really don't think he was in the running for the New York Mets job. And we joke privately that the New York media would have ate him alive, had he took that role, especially with the post-game interviews that were so mundane and tip of the cap bullshit that he would always say. But taking the gig that he did, I mean, at least he's got a job in baseball, and I think it's something that he might thrive at and enjoy because it'll be a different look, but it's still Major League Baseball. So I mean, I'm happy for him that he got that job, but a little surprised that a team like the A's or the Padres didn't really have much interest in him. That it kind of speaks to maybe not knowing what the true issue was with Mozeliak and company, and maybe they were a little gun shy on hiring him. But a guy that was Manager of the Year candidate, you'd think would have got a little longer of a look.
Yeah, he's going to be working in the field operations department, Larry. So I mean, he's going to be kind of working with teams and I guess implementing some of these things, or working on, I guess, communication with the teams back and forth the office. But it does have to make you think. The Mets didn't hire him. The A's, the Padres did interview him and then hired Melvin real quick, which I can Melvin, it'll be interesting to see what he can do there. But I mean, your thoughts? We thought surely someone's going to pick him up real quick, being a finalist for Manager of the Year, but it was kind of crickets.
I think that with Oakland not hiring him, it kind of does go back to that philosophical difference between him and Mo, that we were moving to analytics, and we know that Billy Beane, he's invented basically Moneyball and all that. But so, that's just it. If he didn't apply those analytic beliefs, then why would the teams that buy into analytics, why would they have him? The Padres, I was one of those guys that, again, I didn't think that was a good fit from the very beginning, but I think they needed somebody with more, I don't know, like Melvin. He's a good hire for them. He really is. And then the Mets, I don't know. I could have seen them taking a flyer on him just because they're such a dumpster fire anyhow. They have been for years. And I think under Cohen, I think it's going to be even worse there. But I don't think Schilt will be out of baseball for long as far as the managerial positions, because there will be that position where somebody gets fired and they'll want somebody in for him or what have you. And he's that kind of guy. And hell, who knows? Maybe Kansas City will hire him.
Matheny did a surprisingly better job there last year than we thought, but Schilt's tenure was definitely cut short. But at least he'll still be involved in baseball somehow. Maybe he'll come back to manage one day, a la Tony La Russa. He kind of left and went to work in the front office for a while, and Joe Torre, etc. So now we'll move on. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame. We're going to cover it real quick because the ballots are out, and we actually had a lot of internal discussion today between all of us on who we would all vote for, between myself, Larry, Chris, Brad, Boyd, Dustin, and Zach, the Cardinals Nation 24/7 team, and we all had our colorful metaphors and stuff that we used to describe our ballots. But also, real quick, I did want to touch on, speaking of Hall of Fame, they had their committee get together, every now and then, where the They have I guess, what is it called here? I'm gonna have to look it up.
Veterans.
The Golden Days Era Committee. That's a mouthful. They discuss players, that played from 50 to 69 on who should get put into the Hall of Fame. And Ken Boyer was on that list, former third baseman for the Cardinals, and he was not elected to the Hall of Fame. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a chance again next year, but he wasn't taken. And I don't know, I'm kind of dropping this on you guys, but Boyer's, stats over his career are not as good as I thought it was. He hit just shy of 300 home runs, 282, 1,141 RBIs. Strikeout to walk ratio was pretty much 1-to-1. His career batting average was 287, on base 349. So overall, he was a pretty good hitter. But you would think back in those times when hitting was a little bit, I guess, at a higher level, you would have thought his numbers would have been a little better. But if I hadn't looked up the stats, I would have thought, oh, he's going to be a for sure, Hall of Famer. But really, not so much. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys had thoughts on that, but I didn't want to touch on Ken Boyer. You guys probably didn't. I had to look up his stuff too. So
he was even before my time.
Moving on real quick. It's a good time before we finish the ballot too. Chris, do you want to tell everyone about CardinalsNation247.com?
Yeah, we talked about it on a couple of the last shows that we've got a website that was, and it kind of still is a work in progress, but we do have the domain.
It's easier to remember.
Huh? Yeah, easy to remember. We've got an easy to remember domain. If you go to CardinalsNation247.com, you can find this podcast. That's the YouTube version of our show. It also has the audio podcast on there, as well as blogs that myself and Brad Kell, and hopefully we'll get some other contributors to blog about. But all of our content that's exclusive to the website, we do share the stuff out on Facebook and on Twitter, but, hating to rely on those social media platforms, it's kind of nice to have our own website where everybody can go and, get everything just at the click of their finger. So it's CardinalsNation247.com, and, we're going to get the ball rolling on putting out more content, each day that we have it. So
and we won't kick you off there, Chris.
Yeah, and every story on there is unique and have their own little perspective on it. So if you don't like it, go somewhere else. Go to hell.
Chris,
writing.
I was going to say real quick. Now I know me and Brad, we're not Derek Gould and we're not Katie Woo of The Athletic. We're not on there like coming up with some groundbreaking news that nobody on the. Yeah, we're not. It's mostly fan opinion articles. And the funny thing is we can have the same ideas that several others have and have a totally different perspective and spin on it. And, it's funny because we kind of got called out for, I did personally, for using a topic that somebody had already written an article about. And it kind of threw me off because I didn't know that it was exclusive to one person can have this thought. So I'll just kind of throw that out there that we might cover some of the same topics that other people do, but we definitely put our own spin to it.
Don't worry about it, Chris. Nobody read anything he wrote, so it's okay.
Well, ESPN reported on Pujols maybe coming back to the Cardinals at some point in time, so we can't talk about it or write about it. So make sure you don't. Make sure you keep it off your topic list, would you, Chris? So, yeah, Chris, someone heard about it and automatically froze him and locked him up. He's no longer with us. He's been booted. They're watching everything we do. Also, real quick, while Chris is on a quick break, I want to remind everyone about our Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast giveaway. Now, all you have to do is screenshot your subscription, send it to us. You can message us if you want, if that's easier for you. But we do have the actual post on our Facebook page and group. If you go comment on that and show us a screenshot of your subscription to the page, you're entered in for a drawing. We're going to give away a Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast shirt after the first of the year. The second place, we're going to pick 3 winners, and you get the first place we get to pick. We've got an Adam Wainwright framed jersey bobblehead, which is pretty cool. And then we've also got 2 tickets to see the Cardinals and the Mets on April 25th. So that'll be coming up pretty quick. And who knows, Max Scherzer may be pitching or somebody else. So the Mets have made some pretty good moves. So it should be a fun game to watch. So 3 prizes. Whoever we draw first will get to pick. Second, we'll get to pick second. And 3rd. And it's just a way for us. I mean, obviously, we're doing it to try to get people to, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but we're also doing it as a way to kind of like make it fun, creative, and give out a couple of prizes. So, again, go to YouTube, Cartoonization 247, subscribe, screenshot that, send it to us, and we'll get you entered in for the drawing. So, looks like Chris dropped off again. If we get him back, we'll bring him back in. But
just like that, we kicked Chris off. Oh, I lied.
Just like that, he was muted. Somebody, they're watching him. See, they're watching him so much, he's just got banned.
That's what it is.
Larry, did you fill out a Hall of Fame ballot?
I did not. I looked at it, and I told you guys, I honestly, out of all those players on there, I have mixed emotions about all of them. I mean, granted, I think anybody that dons a Major League Baseball uniform is a far better athlete than I am. I don't care. Matt Stairs is a better athlete than I am. But so I hate when fans bash players. I really do. But when I look at the ballots across the board, it's just not that big of a, to me, there's 2 players on there that I think are Hall of Fame worthy. And I would, of course, I'm a homer. I'll admit it. The Hoosier, Scotty Rowland, of course, he'd be a definitely. And then the other one is Billy Wagner. I mean, the rest, they can go to hell for all I care. I mean, Barry Bonds was the true best athlete of my time as far as 5-tool player. And to do what he did to baseball, if you let him in, you might as well let in Pete Rose, Big Mac, Sosa, Clemens. You might as well let them all in. And that's my downside of it. And like I said, they all have their just causes or worth why they would get in. I hate David Ortiz with a passion. I think he's one of the most overrated players to ever play the damn game. The guy couldn't hit a home run in the Homer Dome, my God. And then he goes to Boston and becomes the world-class home run hitter. Yeah, he didn't inject himself with nothing either.
Well, there's a lot of – well, it's funny that you mentioned that because there's a lot of people on the list that are, suspected of that. We're still in the steroid era as far as Hall of Fame election balloting goes. And I'm sure in my little ballot I filled out so people could – not that my ballot counts for anything, but I did it just for fun. I usually try to fill one out every year. And I'm different than most of these reporters. I actually like to fill out all 10. I think people that just fill out check 2 or 3 players, I think are kind of assholes, just to put it short. I mean, I could see them, doing 7 or 8, but some people do 2, 3 players and leave it at that. There's a lot of good. I mean, everyone on this list is a great ball player. I don't want to try to shame anyone or say somebody completely sucked, because obviously they wouldn't even be on the list if they didn't have a chance at it. But I mean, Barry Bonds, the greatest home run hitter ever, regardless if he used steroids or not. He was never tested positive. It was never against the rules when he played when he was younger. I mean, later on, but he never tested positive. So whether he took them or not, I could care less. There's a lot of players that take steroids and have tested positive, and they weren't jacking home runs and getting on base like that guy was. So I also got Roger Clemens, probably one of the greatest pitchers of all time. I don't see how you can take same thing as Bonds, never tested. People said that he did, but in my opinion, my first opinion, who cares? I think everyone did back then when most of those guys were playing through the, 90s. I think all players did it. A lot of them did it just to stay healthy or to heal faster. What do you think about Bonds and Clemens? Do you think those got to be 2 of the?
I for the most part,
steroids aside, you're just looking at numbers.
As far as, like I said, with your ballot, just look at everybody else's. The biggest one I would say that is the Omar Vizquel. That one there kind of jumps back at me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Joe. I thought you were going to say Joe Nathan.
No, actually, like I said, I mean, I can understand most of these players being on here. I really can. I've said before. I think me and Boyd Harder, we kind of agreed on that today, was that there should just be an asterisk next to their names. Anybody played from 1989 through 2000, say 13, 14, whatever, if they get elected to Barry Bonds, just put an asterisk, and it just simply says they played in maybe a PED era. They may or may not have used player-enhancing drugs. Simple as that. It doesn't take away anything from that player by they're still in the Hall of Fame. nobody cares. Ask Pete Rose how much he would like to be in there. He'll put that asterisk if you'd like him to. You don't care. He'll even bet on it.
Oh yeah, Pete Rose should definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
And again, I see, and again, we're going to disagree there as well. But like I said, was I there when Barry Bonds shot up? No. But, there's enough lab testing reports, everything else.
Supposedly shot up.
What's that? Right.
Supposedly shot up.
Supposedly. Yeah. Anyway, but even like, Roger Clemens, the guy, he leaves Boston, goes to Toronto. He gains 7 miles an hour on his fastball, comes back to the Yankees, and he's an ace again. And he was all but done when he left Boston.
Maybe he changed his delivery.
And that was my next thing. I said, we don't know. Maybe,
And we don't know. And I totally get what you're getting at too. I mean, it's we could pretty much say within a shadow of a doubt that a lot of these guys on this list.
I mean, I think Todd Helton, I think he's one of the best players to ever play the game. I think, but he was aided by where he played. I mean, he played his whole entire career in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and he had a good batting average and a good on base percentage, but a lot of his other stats weren't super great. And that's and a lot of it's up for interpretation, right? Because that's why I did pick Joe Nathan. A lot of people to me are like Joe Nathan. I'm like, well, yeah, go look at his saves and his ERA and how many appearances he made. He was a shutdown closer, and for me, I look at the time frame, and I think the closer now is probably not as valued as it used to be. Billy Wagner should have been up first.
Oh, first ballot. Heck yeah. He was the closer. I mean, that was it. Nobody wanted to face Wagner. But just think how Joe Nathan, how good he was. People don't realize he kept the Yankees' greatest closer of all time as the setup man for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Before he went to Texas, he was the closer in the Yankees. And, Rivera was the setup guy for 2 seasons behind him. And so that right there, that speaks volumes to me. But like guys like Jimmy Rollins, I don't think he ever really exceeded or anything. Guys like, Ryan Howard, as much as he's a St. Louis guy and all that. And I mean, he just didn't put the numbers up, the longevity. Hudson, I don't think he did anything jump out. Lincecum, those guys, I just don't see him. Jeff Kent, he's a guy I could argue with as well. I mean, he was the prolific home run hitting second baseman that nobody really seen until he came along. I mean, he was just a big guy. So they all have their thing. And I agree. I tend to agree more with your selections than I do a lot of the other guys in the groups.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably like, well, you left off Sammy Sosa. And my Sosa thing didn't have anything to do with steroids. It had more to do with I don't remember him, and I could be wrong. I didn't look at his defensive metrics, but I don't remember him being a complete all-around player. I was trying to take into account longevity, that players that performed at a high level over a long period of time. And that's why I left off Andrew Jones as well. Andrew Jones was a good player for a long time, a great defensive player, won a lot of gold gloves. But several years in his career was abysmal. It really just drove down his batting average and on-base percentage. So I could have voted for him, but I had him off my list. But, Jones and Sosa could be on the list, but weren't. I went ahead and took Helton and Ortiz. And another reason I picked Vizquel is the amount of time he played and the amount of gold gloves he won. So I tried to take, obviously my selections might be different if I sat down and it was my job to vote and I were going to take several days to analyze all these stats forward and backwards and everything. Then my ballot might be a little different, but this is just me knowing, quick stats and performance over the years and kind of putting together who I thought was most. That's why I thought, to have some writers that go out and don't list 10, and list like 4 or 5. I mean, on this list, I don't want to say they're all Hall of Famers, but you probably have 12 to 13 that you could say are probably deserving. Even some people might say Manny Ramirez should be there. So there's a lot of good players that obviously are up for consideration.
So my thing is with a Hall of Famer is I look at it that first off, were they the team's MVP of when they were there, their career? The teams that they were on, were they the consummate MVP? And then on top of that, I would look and say, okay, were they the best in their division at that time, at that position they played? Then on top of that, then you look at it and say, okay, so were they even the best in baseball for their league? And I mean, because you throw in guys like Jonathan Papelbon. I mean, the guy had 2 or 3 remarkable years, but after that, he really didn't do much of anything. But you look at a guy, on here like Gary Sheffield. The guy was a phenomenal athlete, played hell of a baseball, and he did a great job. But, again, he played on some really good teams with the Marlins. And then after that, they traded everybody away and they kind of cleaned house. And you're stuck with a team that's not very good. Of course he's going to be the best player. So at some point, you have to kind of look at it both ways. And, I mean, like Sosa, like you said, if you take in the Texas Rangers era, you take in him playing for the Chicago White Sox, he was not a good ball player. He just was not. Even in the outfield for the Cubs, he was not anywhere near a Gold Glove outfielder at all. He threw to the wrong base. He played to the fan favorites because they loved him. I mean, they saved baseball. So my aspect for that is that if there's an honorary position for two players, Sosa and McGuire should get in just because for them saving baseball after the 94 strike. And that there, they save baseball. These guys right now, the sports writers, the TV casters, the baseball players of today, they wouldn't be there today if it wasn't for those two guys recapturing everybody's heart to play baseball. And so that's no different than putting in like
the Hall of Fame should have its own little separate thing for it.
And that's, I mean, they kind of do. I mean, they have the uniform that, I'm sorry, and I'm horrible. And I know it's DeWitt's uniform or whatever that, the guy wore, the kid or the dwarf, the midget, I don't know what you call him, the Gene Bonds of the world. Oh, I'm sorry. The little guy, the uniform, it's in the Hall of Fame. Those kind of things are because they're novelties. And even like the women in baseball, the World War II era, they got into the Hall of Fame because they created that wing. So if we can give Wander Franco 11-year deal at the age of 19, I think the Hall of Fame can afford to build another wing somewhere.
You're exactly right, and I agree with you 100%. So I think that's pretty much all that we have for tonight, though. I don't have any other topics on the list, Larry, unless you have anything.
Just Chris had just texted me again. They have pretty bad storms where he's at. So if everybody just keep their, Chris and his family in their prayers, make sure they're safe and stuff. And the other thing is I want to throw out there is the Mayfield, Kentucky issue. We don't just talk sports here. We do care about our communities and things as well. And so our heartfelt prayers should go out to that families and stuff, that are survivors and those that unfortunately lost their lives during that tornado episodes. We really do care about that. And, if everybody just take a moment and realize how lucky they are they weren't a part of that, and then even contribute to them if you felt, the need to financially assist them, that'd be wonderful as well. There's great organizations out there to help. On top of that, I'd like, our Cardinals Nation, our deepest sympathies go out to them as well. But I think one of the other things Chris wanted to talk about was the Ozzie Smith upcoming, the infield for the Cardinals. They're going to do, Ozzie Smith is actually a part of our group, which unbeknownst to me joined 5 years ago. And how do I not know? But Ozzie Smith actually posts our group. They're going to do a gala where they're going to do the infield from the World Series team is going to be there. And they're going to speak about the whole season and things. And tickets are available. And if you go to our group, 24 Cardinals Nation 24/7 on Facebook, you can actually find the post by Ozzie Smith. Just search it, Ozzie Smith. It'll come right up. And you get more information there as well. I think that's kind of a neat thing. And you and I both talked about, it's a shame you live so far away. You and I would attend that for sure in a heartbeat, just to hear those stories. And I'd heckle, Hernandez, but other than that,
Yeah, Keith Hernandez, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Herr, Ken Oberkfell, the 1982 World Series, St. Louis Cardinals infield, February 17th, 7 p.m. at Ballpark Village, Valley's Live. Special guest Whitey Herzog, and it's going to be hosted by Joe Buck. Oh. So tickets are only $100 a person, so that's a pretty good deal. Like Larry said, you can find the information on Cardinals Nation Facebook page and group, or you can purchase tickets at OzzieandFriends.com.
So if you get a chance, jump out over to our Facebook page. Chris and the rest of our moderators and Jarrad and myself, we make sure that kind of runs seamlessly. I think we pretty much kind of keep the people out that cause most of the problems, and some of the scammers we're able to catch and get out of there. But all in all, I think we have good baseball discussions in there, and it's always nice to add more people there. If you're not a member there, it's a good place to catch us as well.
Yes, sir. And then check out our CardinalsNation247.com. That's our website. A lot of great articles are on there. You can find the podcast on there as well. But Brad Kale, one of our team members at Cardinals Nation 24/7, the professor himself, he's been putting out some good content, as well as Chris. Chris has been putting out some fantastic articles, usually about on the average of one a day. And we're getting a tremendous amount of support and feedback. So we appreciate it from all avenues here on YouTube and Facebook and the website. We appreciate you, Cardinals Nation. So I guess without that, too, Larry mentioned trying to donate and help people out. Don't forget about your American Red Cross. And last thing for me is I'll say to everyone that's watching and listening to us and supports us, happy holidays. We hope you enjoy the holiday season with your family and are safe. Have a joyous holiday. And Larry, anything from you?
Just remember, hit the like button. We appreciate it. And go Cardinals.
So, yeah, go Cards.